So for those who'd like to do the Pledge of Allegiance, please go ahead.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, welcome everyone to the Silverton Board of Trustees regular meeting on August 9th. The time is now 7:03 p.m. and I call this meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Trustee Barlow. Here. Trustee Harper.
Here.
Trustee Wager.
Here.
Trustee Beerhoff.
Here.
Trustee George.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Barney.
Here.
Mayor Furman.
Here. Do we have any revisions to the agenda this evening?
Yes, staff would like to make one amendment to the agenda to allow Jim Donovan and Becky Joyce to update the public and trustees on the current status of the COVID-19 outbreak in San Juan County. I would like to have them present before new business.
During presentations and proclamations?
Yes.
Great. Any other revisions to tonight's agenda? Great. All right, we will now open up our public comment period. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. Please introduce yourself before your comment starts. We'll start with in-person comments if anyone wishes to say something, and then we'll move to virtual comments. Looks like nothing in person, so we will move to our Zoom attendees. If you're on Zoom, please click the raise hand button and we will promote you to panelist.
Albert.
Can you hear me?
Go ahead, Albert.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
My name is Albert Hyrick. I have written a manuscript detailing the last 18 months of events in Silverton titled The Last Days of Silverton. It chronicles the pandemic, OHV and pledge controversy, Shane's Selwyn plan, and how it relates to what he has championed and pushed as mayor. It touches on the real estate boom and closes with how the mayor has profited and how he intends to profit by decimating the history, heritage, and honor of the Silverton community. It explains why longtime locals embrace the New York developer over a local hero and delves into exactly who we elected as the mayor. This book scares Shane. He has tried everything to stop it. I offered to let the mayor read the manuscript and respond. He refused and chose to have his trailer park divorce lawyer contact me for a book not even published. Thankfully, we have been able to block his harassing email account. Let me be very clear, Shane. I will publish whatever I wish to publish. This is America, not Beirut. We have been meticulous in the research. Each claim made is fully documented. The book presents the facts and allows the reader to make their own judgment. We raise questions about your professional and public relationships, from your Telluride chef to the Branners. We examine your finances and your past history. We use your own words and documents. We look into how you manipulated Jordan and Sally, and we analyze the one-issue voters in town. I had planned to let everyone mentioned within its pages a chance to read and respond prior to its publication, but this will not happen now. Just as the mayor punished and humiliated the whole town with this tantrum over one person heckling him over the pledge, his decision to ignore my offer for the preview of the manuscript has now left the rest of you in the cold. He screwed his fellow trustees, the sheriff, Marty, Anthony Edwards, the Newtown admin, and a bunch more. All of you are mentioned, and I would have preferred each of you a chance to read, respond, and offer corrections. But thanks to Mayor Furman, that chance is now history. Depending on the time it takes to do the final check on the affidavits, documents, and facts, it may or may not be available before the ballots for the recall go out. We could rush it, but that would be unfair to all mentioned. You see, Shane, some of us are conscientious enough to put the truth before profit. It is something you have not yet learned. An honorable man would resign and pursue his dream to turn Silverton into Telluride as a private resident instead of using the mayor's position to create an uneven and divisive playing field. Resign, Mayor. Tonight could be a fresh start for Silverton if you would only do the honorable thing. Look it up. Honorable It's in the dictionary. In closing, Shane, let Tony know we will not have any dialogue with him, negotiate with him, or treat him with an ounce of respect. He threatened and endangered my family, tried to extort silence, and is generally a slime
Thank
bag.
you, Albert. Your time is up. Have a good evening. I see no other public comment at this time, so we'll go ahead and close public comment and move on to presentations and proclamations. Our COVID update team is here.
Shane, one thing real quick. Are we going to read the email letter, or are we going to read that
Oh.
after the comment?
We did, I apologize. We did have one public comment submission by email that Clerk Freeze Kelly is going to read.
This is a public comment from Alyssa Childs. She says, "Dear trustee and administrator, please consider my public comment regarding the affordable housing topic on tonight's meeting agenda. A few thoughts. Since the county currently has land banks at Anvil subdivision that is earmarked for affordable housing, does it make sense to annex land into the town of Silverton in order that another set of income restricted apartments could be built sooner than later? I understand that the town of Silverton lodging fee, $2 a night for a hotel room, $4 for a vacation rental, is allocated towards tourism marketing. Please correct me if this is not the case. I am not sure this is the best and highest use of these funds. Can this money be reallocated towards an affordable housing fund? It doesn't make sense to spend this money to attract more tourists when it seems existing town businesses cannot serve the tourists that are already here. This is due to staff/housing shortages. Our municipality is one of the few in the area that does not charge a real estate transfer fee. Typically, municipalities charge a fee on real estate transfers 0.01% of purchase price of the typical in Colorado, but this is up to the municipality that levies the fees. Buyers pay this with their other closing costs. Other municipalities use these monies for their affordable housing funds. Please consider these options as you grapple with the housing issues. Thank you for your continued effort towards finding housing solutions for our community. I believe that you should be the town of Silverton's highest priority. Best regards, Melissa Childs.
Thank you. Holly?
I have a question. Why didn't we wait to you to read that now that we're allowing public comment during the actual segment that it pertains to? So that way her comments would have been a little more fresh. So, because if we're changing the way we're going to format it, then maybe we should try to kind of just figure that out a little bit. Because she does bring up quite a bit.
Yeah.
Very relevant.
We can definitely revisit those 3 points during that section. All right. Now we close public comment and we move on to our COVID presentation.
Thanks, you guys, for having us tonight. We'll try to make this short and sweet. We just wanted you all to be aware of what's going on right now in our amazing town. So I'm Becky Joyce, Public Health Director here in San Juan County. For the past 17 months, our community has had amazing dedication and support bracing against COVID-19. Our electives have been amazing. As I hear across the state of Colorado, our electives, including you and the commissioners, have done more than almost everyone to support this effort. Our community has been vaccinated. Our residents have, the majority of them have been vaccinated, and residents as defined by people who spend the majority of their time in one place here for the year. We have by far the highest vaccination rate in the state. Unfortunately, now we have the highest cumulative rate of COVID cases in the state. In this past 6 days, including today, we've now identified 24 cases. That's far higher than we've ever identified before. The Delta variant, as of July 18th, now accounts for 100% of the cases. Our 1 week positivity rate is around 29%. If you remember, in the height of the pandemic, positivity rate of 4% in the state was very serious. Now we are in the level red. It is considered to be stay at home if our state were to have orders. Our 1 week incidence rate is equivalent of having 1,100 cases per week if we had 100,000 community members. As we have watched our economic driver, even though our community has a very high vaccination rate, tourism oftentimes, and they do this by tracking data in the state of Colorado, usually dilutes that. If there's more visitors who come, they are usually more accountable for the unvaccinated population. So therefore, even though we have high rates of vaccination, unvaccinated visitors oftentimes impact us. In the state of Colorado and also across the nation, right now, the highest cases are being seen in 20 to 30-year-old workforce population. They are also the driver of our economic stability, but they are accounting for the majority of the cases. Younger people now have higher rates of hospitalization, as it used to be greater than 70. So we're coming tonight with these concerns to give a recommendation and just to bring awareness and to have clear communication. At this moment, seeing our trend in the last couple of days, I see that San Juan County Public Health lacks the capacity to handle this in meaningful ways. We can't sustain testing 20 to 25 people with a very, very small staff. Therefore, we ask our community partners such as EMS to help us when we need help. Thank you. And what we would like to do is say we can't do this alone. We need our community again. We need our community behind us. And we recommend that anyone you know that is not vaccinated, please, please encourage them to get vaccinated. That is our number one defense. Please encourage yourselves and your friends, your neighbors, and your employees to wear a mask indoors during this time of very high community spread rate. Please wash your hands. Please test if you are sick. Please stay home if you're sick. And that's what I have to come to say tonight.
Thank you, Becky. Okay, my name is Jim Donovan, Emergency Manager for San Juan County. And just as you notice, we are really going back to how we used to operate. We are just going to take our masks off while we speak, just so it's easy to hear. But I just wanted to emphasize, we have been going at this for over 17 months. San Juan County, our community, has been doing a great job. But COVID this is just a very difficult virus, and it's going to continue to throw challenges at us. So we really do need the community to step up once again. And the number one way to reduce the impact of the virus is to get people vaccinated. We have vaccines available 5 days a week. So we've tried to remove every possible barrier to get a vaccine. We just need the community to jump in. I do also want to emphasize the state has been tracking basically mobility data, and they have determined that we have basically a high impact of out-of-state visitors to our community compared. San Miguel and San Juan County have both very, very high impacts from visitors. There's only so much we can control. We can always have our community provide that support, but we can also encourage visitors to do the right thing. And if they're going to come and visit our community, that they be vaccinated as well. With that, I am going to now turn over to Deanne, who's going to talk about our communication strategy.
So Deanne Gallegos, Public Information Officer for San Juan County. Just to give you an idea about our communication strategy and plan to date. Of course, emails, post office, knocking on doors, phone calls, you kind of have to do all the above to get to this community. And, last week I had the luxury of doing 9 News, Colorado Sun, a handful of media who wanted to know why and how we were so successful. And so a couple of things to answer that is we're little, right? And so there's within the DOLA state demographics is the number that they use for our population. So it's not just about small town and communities, it's also explaining to the public at large that we're a summer tourism community. So it isn't just 686 of us in the summer. We actually bring in a lot of folks into the summer who live here, who visit here, and just
cohabitate with us. The initial trend that we saw was unvaccinated folks who came in for the summer and worked with the public at large. As of today, the trend is community spread. It's with the construction trades, general public, and a handful of vaccinated as well as majority unvaccinated. And so vaccination success, although it is successful in those particular localized cases that we're monitoring are less sick if they contract COVID, you got to keep in mind it still is 66% to 95%, right? So it's not 100%, and our localized data and stats are seeing that. But what we are seeing with our vaccinated population is you are not as sick. And then just to put it into perspective, if this was a year ago, like Becky said, with the state regulations, we'd have been shut down. We would have been in stay at home. Now, under the success of the vaccination campaign in the state of Colorado, we issued an advisory for indoor mask use. And again, as Director Joyce said, it really takes self-responsibility and accountability with coaching each other. Going around to the businesses this weekend, I was incredibly proud. The business owners stating that, hey, if I have unvaccinated staff, I am asking them to put on a mask and just educating one another. So it's just accountability to one another. But last and not least, we also have to be compassionate for each other. There really is no such thing as 100%. There are some folks in our community who cannot receive the vaccine because immunity and or quite frankly, your own choices for your own health. And that is something I've always been proud of this health department is to honor and respect that. And so sometimes it feels like I'm vaccinated, right? That's not a shameful feeling. That's a personal choice. But what we have seen is that having those talks with each other and, hey, I got it. You know what? I may not have felt well for a week, or, hey, I got it. And I didn't feel a thing. Or just honoring and respecting those around you who can't get the vaccine. So just being mindful of each other, respectful of each other, and compassionate with what each person's individual choice is. It's going to take all of us to stop this high transmission spread. We're starting to see the trend in Montrose, Plata County. You're right. It just caught up with us. We all move in the same communities. We have tourists coming and going. But I would like to point out the perspective of how far we have come in this pandemic. This isn't last summer. But we're also going into the fall and the winter into complete unknowns and these variances and this virus that is going to do all it can to survive in a host, which is our human body, right? So as leadership, especially, and then public health, it really, if it's just each one of us having honest conversations with each other and being mindful and trying to make those decisions when we can to please help stop the spread that's currently happening in our community. Thank you.
Now you can see why she's our public information officer.
I have a quick question, Ms. Becky. Incentives. You and I have had a discussion, sidebar, if you will. Incentive programs.
Yeah,
Is that a thing?
so,
Maybe a thing?
you know, I'm going to look into it. As you all know, our governor gave out $5 million worth of incentives at one point. And then the state sites, the state vaccination sites actually have been giving out $100 Walmart gift cards. And so I will revisit that again. We had such a lull in the desire for, or the request for vaccinations about at least 2 weeks ago to at least a month before, we were probably only vaccinating maybe 4 people a week, as opposed to 60 people a week that we really, and those were their second doses. And so we thought maybe there's barriers. So we started carrying all 3 vaccines, Pfizer, Moderna, and J&J. Our partners to the south have been very generous in giving us vaccine when we want. We can get it via courier whenever we want from San Juan Basin Public Health. And then advertising it for any time you want. I mean, we've given vaccine at 8:00 at night. Because as you all know, your workers, they work. They can't get it at between 10 and 12 in the morning. So Jim, I will look into that. And if you have anyone that you think that would actually work on, bring it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kelly?
I'd like to also remind everybody The town has still got about 3 cases of face masks. If you guys are needing any face masks or any hand sanitizer, please come to the town. We have it free and available for any. And if we need to, I will join with Becky and we'll do my little red wagon brigade. And everybody again. So,
Thank you.
so.
Thank you, Kelly. And I have to say, whenever someone says, wow, San Juan County, wow, Becky, what an amazing job you've done in San Juan County. I said, it's not me. It's all of you. It is all of the community that showed up. Even when a lot of us really didn't want to get the vaccine, it wasn't necessarily for us, it was for each other. So everybody has done their part, not just with the vaccine, but even the months preceding that. So our community is amazing. It's resilient. I know we can do this again. I know we're all pandemic fatigued, believe me. But I think if we can pull together, if we can slow down this rate right now and just remind ourselves, hey, it is right there. Let's protect ourselves, personal responsibility. Then I know we can get through this. And thank you for all of your support. I hear all the time other public health directors that do not have their elected support, and you all have been a major player. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Becky, Jim, Dean, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
My biggest concern right at this minute is school opening and being able to have an in-person learning environment like we had last year, which was also thanks to the community. And a couple of follow-up questions sort of in relation to that. One is the vaccine available for tourists? Can we get that message out? So if people are, I know it doesn't help us kind of immediately,
Yes.
but it just may be a global approach. And are there community or town efforts, or in our role as town trustees, that you would recommend that we begin pursuing in terms of, I'm going to throw it out there, the mask ordinance or mask mandates or other things that you would recommend we put in place as trustees?
I can answer the first question. Our vaccine has been available to any, am I looking here or am I looking there? That's Sally.
Oh, the owl was left.
Okay, thank you.
Just look wherever, Becky.
Hi, Sally. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm in my brother's car.
Our vaccine has been free and no documentation needed to anyone, even non-San Juan County residents from the start. We followed the protocol of the governor's request of how we rolled out the vaccine, but anyone, in fact, many residents from other communities who were over 70 got in that first round. So the other thing we're really doing differently right now is we're spiking a bottle no matter how many people come. We don't need 6 people to open up that vial of Pfizer. We go ahead and just open it up, and if we have to waste it, we waste it. So that's what we're doing. If you think we have efforts that would be worthwhile at the train, we would go sit out in front of the train. However, right now we have not made that move. So, but just saying, we're very willing to do anything to get it to anybody. So thank you.
Thank you. All right. Thank you all. So now we move on to first item of new business, consideration to approve resolution 2021-06, a resolution of the town of Silverton setting a special election on October 12th, 2021, and submitting to the registered electors town. I think that's a typo. To the registered electors, a ballot question concerning the operation of off-highway vehicles in the town of Silverton.
And there's also an accompanying memo in the agenda packet on the language of the ballot and how votes will be counted. And I ask you to direct your questions to our clerk Kelly or Attorney Marty for further discussion.
I guess for the benefit of the people listening, I highly recommend reading the memo included in tonight's packet because it explains each of the different potential outcomes of yes, no votes getting through the ballot. So if you're curious about how the numbers affect the outcome, that memo explains everything.
I have a quick clarifying question. Down in section 3, it's referring to the one that receives the greatest number of affirmative votes shall be adopted in all particulars as to which there is a conflict. Does that mean any yes vote would outweigh any no vote?
You should read well, rather than us interpret it, you should read the memo which talks about that. And Marty also can explain that.
The short answer is yes. You don't count no votes really in determining a conflict. You count yes votes.
Perfect. That was all the clarification I needed. Thank you, Marty.
You're welcome.
I had a question too. It's one that you've addressed at some point, but in a memo, but for the public information, I wondered if we could just address briefly who can register to vote and what the requirements are and the timeline on voter registration.
And Marty, is it possible for you to adjust your camera so we can see you? Thank you.
Sure, hang on, because that's in a different section. I can read you. It's entitled to vote. Qualifications of municipal electors. Every person who has attained the age of 18 years possessing the following qualifications is eligible to register to vote at all municipal elections. A, citizen of the United States. B, the person is a resident of the municipal precinct and has resided in the state for 22 days immediately preceding the election at which the person offers to vote. In order to vote in a municipal election conducted under this article, a person must be a registered elector. An otherwise qualified and registered elector who moves from the municipal election precinct where registered to another precinct within the same municipality is permitted to cast a ballot in the polling place in the precinct where registered. So this is probably the most pertinent. The residence of a person in the principal or primary home or place of the residence of a person is the principal or primary home or place of abode of a person. It is that place in which his habitation is fixed and to which a person, whenever he is absent, has the present intention of returning after a departure or absence thereof. The following circumstances may be taken into account: business pursuits, employment, income sources, residence for income or other tax purposes, age, marital status, residence of parent, spouse, and children, leaseholds, situs of personal and real property, and motor vehicle registration. So there's a very specific statute, 3110-201, qualifications of municipal voters. Kelly's very familiar with this statute, and I'm certain has implemented it in the past.
Thank you, Marty. And then my other question is, in the case of the recall elections, what is the process for the public and for us trustees to to know who we're running against.
Can we just pause that one until we get to the recall section of the agenda?
Oh, yep. Sorry.
Any other questions, comments, or discussion relating to the current resolution being considered? Would someone like to make a motion?
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to accept resolution number 2021-06, a resolution of the town of Silverton setting a special municipal election on October 21st, 2021, and submitting to the registered electeds of the town a ballot question concerning operations of off-highway vehicles in the town of Silverton.
Just a quick revision. I think you accidentally said the 21st instead of the 12th.
Oh, 12th, pardon me.
We have a second of that motion as revised.
Second as revised.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Trustee Barilla,
Yes.
trustee Harper,
Yes.
trustee Wager,
Yes.
trustee Fairwell,
Yes.
trustee George,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Barney,
Yes.
Mayor Carmen.
Yes. All right, and I note that new business 4B discussion on ballot language memo was included in that first discussion. Unless there's any further questions or discussion related to the memo, we'll move on to new business 4C. Okay, consideration to approve resolution 2021-07, a resolution of the town of Silverton setting a special municipal election on October 12th, 2021, following a finding of sufficiency for the recall of Shane Furman as mayor, Sally Barney as trustee, and Jordan Bierma as trustee. And I'll just clarify real quick that we requested guidance from Marty as to whether or not those subject to the recall needed to recuse, and we were actually told no. This is something where it's really just a matter of process, and we all have to vote yes on this one. And Marty, could you just confirm that so it's not just me saying it?
Yes, it's covered in 503(4). When such recall petition is determined sufficient, the municipal clerk shall submit said petition together with a certificate of its sufficiency to the governing body of such municipality at the first meeting of such body following expiration of the period within which a protest may be filed, or at the first meeting of such body following the determination of a hearing officer that a petition is sufficient, whichever is later. The governing body shall thereupon order and fix a date for the recall election to be held, not less than 30 days nor more than 90 days from the date of submission of the petition to the governing body by the municipal clerk, and determine whether voting in the recall election is to take place at polling place or by mail election. So this is procedural. There's no discretion. The clerk has provided the determination of sufficiency. There were no protests. This is simply setting the date for the election. The reason that the election is set for October 12th is because you already have approved a special election on October 12th, and it will be most efficient and cost effective to have all pending issues on the same ballot.
Thank you. And the only other note I have is that in the version in our packet, there are a couple of typos in names, and those will be corrected in the version adopted.
Yes, I think those were corrected earlier today. They just didn't get circulated in your packet.
Thank you. Any other questions or discussion?
It's a procedural issue, so it's
Do I hear a motion?
Well, just my other question from before that was out of
Yes, sorry.
the order of the agenda. The question of how we know who we run against. And I saw in the packet that the date range for pulling petitions is August 10th to the 28th, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's correct. And so I just wanted to understand the process for determining who we run against.
So nominating petitions in a recall election are filed in the same manner as for any other municipal election. And so that's 31-10-302. The only thing that's slightly different is the timing. And so nomination petitions are circulated beginning the day after the determination of or the setting of election. And I'm just looking to find the language here. Candidates for the office at a recall election may be nominated by petition as provided in section 31-10-302, except that nominating petitions may be circulated beginning on the first business day after the governing body sets the date for the recall election, which would be tomorrow, and shall be filed no later than 20 days prior to such recall election, which would be 20 days prior to October 12th.
Okay, and so do we just call the clerk or stop by town hall to find out? And if somebody pulls a nominating petition for trustee, does that person just run against either Jordan or me, or do they specify what trustee position they would like to fill?
It's going to be as they would for an ordinary municipal election. If there is a specific district or ward, it has to be for that ward. Otherwise, it would be general. And essentially each one of them, only if the initial question, which is shall person be recalled, only if the answer to that is yes, do you look at the votes for nominees.
Thank you.
Molly?
I have a question. How long do these seats hold? Is it for the term of the person that's being recalled, or is it just until the next election in April?
I believe. Good question. I think they serve for the balance of the term. I believe they serve for the balance of the term, but we will clarify that and get it to Gloria.
And can you confirm how many signatures are needed for a successful petition?
Yes, it is going to be the same as in five, 10, 302. $25 registered electors. No, sorry, for a candidate in a town, at least 10 registered electors.
Exciting stuff.
Okay, so it looks like it's 10.
we have any other questions?
I would just like a definitive answer on the balance of term or until the next election. That's the only thing.
We
And
will,
you can email it.
we'll let you know.
Yeah, perfect.
Is there any limit on how many petitions an individual can sign if there's multiple petitions going around? Do they all need to be independent? Or can someone sign all the petitions?
No registered, this is 3110-302 paren 5. No registered elector shall sign more than one nomination petition for each separate office to be filled. So I believe that would mean no one could sign more than 3 nomination petitions.
Well, would someone like to make a motion or do we have more questions?
Sure, I'm feeling brave. I'll make a motion to accept resolution number 2021-07. Resolution of the town of Silverton setting a special municipal election on October 12th, 2021, following a finding of sufficiency for the recall petitions of Shane Furman as mayor, Sally Barney as trustee, and Jordan Bierma as trustee.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Trustee Burrow,
Yes.
trustee Harper,
Yes.
trustee Wager,
Yes.
trustee Bearmont,
Yep.
trustee George,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Barney,
Yes.
Mayor Furman.
Yes. All right. Moving on to new business 4D. Discussion on Colorado State House of Representatives redistricting preliminary map.
So I'm presenting this information to you to inform the public and you all on the proposed redistricting of San Juan County for the representation at the state and national level. I'm also asking for direction if you would like me to draft a letter to the Independent Congressional Redistricting Commission with your collective position. The US Census is conducted every 10 years. And after that, there's usually a redistricting of some sort. This is the first year that the Independent Congressional Redistricting Commission, the first in the nation actually, published the preliminary maps in June and is currently holding public hearings around the state to include the voice of the areas impacted. There was a live hearing this weekend in Durango, but there are many more scheduled, and people interested in commenting on these preliminary maps can attend future meetings virtually or in person and state their concerns whether or not the hearing is even in their district. So if it's in Longmont, they can still attend and state their concerns. They can do this virtually as well. I have included a link for the information in the memo found in tonight's packet, but I'll restate it. For the record, it's https://redistricting.colorado.gov. I would like to note that the county commissioners discussed this at their last meeting, and the consensus was to be included in House District 52 with La Plata County. After listening to the public hearing in Durango, there was voice concern on the redistricting based on watershed, tourism, economic development, geographical access, and services. During the hearing, I did not hear any affirmative arguments for the proposed change, and I would open this up for discussion or direction.
Thank you. Molly?
I'm truly curious why they would separate us out of La Plata after we've been there for, I mean, we were District 59 for forever. Did they give any reason other than population?
That's all they've given is the reason is population.
Okay.
Yeah, this actually came across kind of in a disturbing way from my perspective. We just got an email asking us to help spread the word and to market this change on behalf of this decision. There was no communication to us in advance asking for input, saying that there were going to be meetings where they would be talking about these issues. It simply was a notice and a request for marketing help. And that kind of sparked a flurry of activity to figure out what was going on and how we could fight it. What can we do, or what are your recommendations in terms of us having a seat at the table for this discussion and hoping to persuade against this change?
Yes, so I called the Congressional Redistricting Commission, and we can write a letter to them that they can consider. So what they're doing right now with the public hearings is they'll take this information back, they'll look at the maps again, they'll release another preliminary, I guess you call it a secondary preliminary map. And then they'll actually have public comment on that as well, and then take it back, and then there'll be a final decision made. So there is still opportunity for us to have input. And we could also partner with the county commissioners and write a joint letter together that would go to this commission. We can also attend individually these hearings that are around the state. Those are a couple of things we can do.
So would you be looking to us to provide direction to allocate staff time to attending those hearings and to developing letters for us to joint submit?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And then just a process question. If we're unsuccessful in being persuasive at these meetings that allow for public comment, is there an appeal process, or is once they make a decision, is this just decided?
Well, since this is the first round, we will have an opportunity to have our voices heard, then it goes back, and then we'll have our voices heard again. So hopefully it wouldn't come to appeal process is the goal, but if we needed to, we could definitely fight this if we needed to.
Cool. And then another question is there like other communities that are similarly impacted? Is it possible to pool resources with them as well, not just county, in order to also do things like research initiatives in the past that have been successful in overcoming these types of decisions?
I know.
So that we do everything we can.
I know from the hearing in Durango on Saturday, there was a lot of concern from Archuleta County being pushed into, what is it called? Being pushed up to the San Luis Valley instead of being with La Plata County. So I definitely think there's other communities that are upset as well, and they would be one of them.
Great.
Sally has her hand up.
Sally.
Kelly, my questions were kind of in line with Shane's, and to add on to that about in terms of just understanding the complexity of the issue and why or why not we would head one direction versus another direction. I wonder if there's a way to invite or be included, not just in these broader hearings, but in inviting an expert to just weigh the pros and cons for our particular county in this discussion?
I know that we do have a local, she's in Durango and she is on this commission. So I could reach out to her and see if she could give us maybe a presentation of some sort or something like that at our next meeting.
I think that would be helpful, just so we have the full context. This is not an issue. It's statewide, and it's not really an issue that I've researched individually. And so the more context and framework we have to understand, one direction versus another, I think would help us make better decisions and potentially write more persuasive letters when we determine our path forward.
Molly, did you have a question as well?
I didn't have a question. I really think that immediately we should start our own letter and then do a joint one with the county commissioners as well. And then possibly have the larger discussion with the rest of the counties around us that are impacted by this change and see if we can create that bigger letter, that overall kind of overreaching letter that includes all of them, just because we're small doesn't mean we're not here. And I don't know what other way that you could say that. We do have more ties to the south just because of the availability of the pass. It's easier to get to Durango most of the time than it is to go north. And what would it do impacting Region 9 as far as us in that district? So there's a lot of unanswered questions with this map that's going on. And yeah, we need way more information.
I absolutely agree.
So if everybody likes that direction, are we gonna just direct staff to move that way? Do we want to show of hands or do you have to do a roll call?
I think, what we've typically done is just said, based on all the direction provided, do you have any questions for clarification, and are there any trustee objections?
So no, what I would say would be, I mean, it seems clear that I like the 3-letter approach, as well as inviting someone that is an expert on this to come down and maybe speak with us at our next meeting. Does that sound?
Regarding the pros and cons,
You weighing the pros and cons, yes.
will anyone be attending the August 10th tomorrow?
Oh, good Lord.
It's virtual.
And I can, if you'd like me to. I can.
It's not up to me.
I can add that to the list of directions. How about that?
All right, any further direction or clarification sought?
Oh, that is clear. Thank you.
Okay, any trustee objections? Awesome. Okay, onward and upward. Consideration to approve unbudgeted expense of adding soil to Mullis Lake Campground and update on tree health analysis.
So in your agenda, you will find several memos and quotes to help us address the tree health at one of the town's most valuable assets, Mullis Lake Campground. I was able to tour the campground with Brian and Todd a couple of weeks ago to better understand the need for the immediate remediation. And after looking at the trees and their appeared health, I have a background in forestry as well. I used to do timber stand analysis before this, so it was kind of fun to go up there and get out of the office for a second. But looking at these trees, time is of the essence. The less we have soil there, the more we're going to get root rot, as well as there is some rodent issues. And I can go into that further, but the faster we can get a full assessment and remediation work done, the better. And I'll let Todd take over the explanation of the memos.
Hey, good evening, everyone. I think the memos are pretty self-explanatory. There's actually two items, potentially three items for discussion here. One would be the process of spoils pile to get us some quality topsoil. The second would be the placement and site work, which Brian Fulmer has given us a bid for. The third would be to have the tree health study conducted. I think the memos are pretty forward and they provide some good background and estimated expenses. And other than that, I'd be happy to field any questions that the trustees may have or the public.
Thank you, Todd. Do you guys happen to know off the top of your head the revenue generated by Moelis to date this year?
We do not have our to-date numbers. Todd, do you have the to-date numbers for Moelis? I don't think we've processed those yet.
I don't. Kelly won't be able to get those in the next day or two. But last I checked, which was, it was probably 5 weeks ago at this point, we were approximately $28,000 ahead of what I think were pretty lofty estimates for revenue this year. So we are above last year and are lined up again to have a record year. As far as the specific numbers, we'd need a moment to get those together.
I know they're pretty large numbers. I just thought it'd be helpful context relative to the budget request.
I'm not sure if Clerk Freeze knows any of that information off the top of her head, but it has been about a month since I've looked. I apologize for not providing those.
Okay.
I imagine this, after this process, they'll give us a more detailed idea of what will happen if we don't do anything.
Yes, if we don't address the needs
Right now, we're kind of
in the health assessment, that's what they can provide, yes.
Okay, well, with the revenue generated from Moelis, I would be for going ahead and making sure that we do approve this and do a full forest restoration study, but
So just for a little context, this was brought to a previous board, not necessarily as dire as this is. Todd and I have spoken about this before, and we did a spraying, or I'm not sure exactly what we want to call it, if Todd remembers the solution that we used to help the trees at Moelis, because this is not something new, it's been an ongoing issue. And for us to come back to have to look at it again, we've had huge amounts of rain that have washed away a lot of the soil, no different than our town streets. So it's dire, it's necessary. It's not a new item. It might be newer for this board and for you, but Todd can speak to it. I'm sure he has, what we've done previously in the past. So I'm glad to see this is on here. It is our most amazing asset. And I look forward to hopefully hearing that it's good news. I would like to make a motion, unless there's any more discussion, to approve number 3, to approve the funding, the process material and the placement and labor, which is $19,875.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I just want to say that I think this is a win-win-win for the town, really.
Yes.
We get to process a huge pile of debris that's eating up precious town wattage. And we get to invest in one of our best parks that the town owns. So I think this is great work from Todd, and happy to support this going forward. I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Jess.
My only question is that the sum total of the requests on behalf of the town? Cool, great. Roll call, please.
Trustee Barilla?
Yes.
Trustee Harper?
An emphatic yes.
Trustee Wonder?
Yes.
Trustee Bearhawk?
Yes.
Trustee George?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Barney?
Yes.
Mayor Furman?
Yes. Thank you. All right, moving on to new business item 4F, consideration to approve the forgiveness of Grady Ham's $234.94 water bill due to a hot water tank rupture. Yep.
The second part of that was the Dolic Enterprises for the Mullis Campground. It was on a separate staff memo. And that was a total of in between $1,050 to $1,750. And it says options to approve or deny to complete the forest restoration study. Those numbers were not directly correlated to the one above it. So
That's why I asked if that resolution was the sum total of the town.
no, because I was doing them separately, just as they were in the packet separately. So I'd like to make a motion to approve the Dolic Enterprises for Mullis Campground for the complete forest restoration study.
I'll second. Roll call, please.
Trustee Barilla?
Yes.
Trustee Harper?
Yes.
Trustee Wonder?
Yes.
Trustee Bearhawk?
Yes.
Trustee George?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Barney?
Yes.
Mayor Furman?
Yes. All right, consideration to approve the forgiveness of Grady Ham's $234.94 water bill due to a hot water tank rupture.
And then
The precedent has been that we've done this.
Anything to add, John?
Nope. Grady's good to go. Check this one out. And that, again, that's what we have this policy for. Any more questions? I'd be glad to field them.
Did Mr. Ham get a new water heater?
I think you just put a Band-Aid on that one.
There you go.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the one-time forgiveness for Grady Ham's water bill in the amount of $234.94.
I'll second. Roll call, please.
Trustee Barilla?
Yes.
Trustee Harper?
Yes.
Trustee Wonder?
Yes.
Trustee Bearhawk?
Yes.
Trustee George?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Barney?
Yes.
Mayor Furman?
Yes.
And with that forgiven, he can buy a new water heater. Okay.
Moving on. Thanks, John. New business item 4G, consideration to approve the expenditure of $13,500 to match the awarded DOLA grant for assistance with municipal code updates.
Okay, so the town has received a $13,500 grant from DOLA with an expected match of $13,500 to assist with our planning director with updates to the municipal code. Typically, we would ask for this match before the grant is written, but as I laid out in the memo, this was an agenda item at the end of a very long meeting and the money was not officially approved. I probably don't need to remind you, but the planning department is still slammed with applications and our part-time planning director has not been able to take any time off this year. I mean, she's maxed out her PTO allowance halfway through the year. This is not sustainable and the planning department still needs more help. We hired a planning assistant in June who has proven to be just incredible. He's an engineer, he's invaluable, yet he's only budgeted part-time at an hourly rate less than the current openings for a full-time benefited maintenance worker. And in order to keep him in his role and not jump to another role, we need to compensate him accordingly. So while I'm asking for matching funds for the DOLA grant for a project that needs to happen, Lisa currently doesn't have that capacity to monitor and support the consultant updating the municipal code unless we give her more help. So I will have a memo in the next meeting once I have crunched all of the numbers and have a solid proposal to boost our planning assistant to full-time and pay comparable wages to another department that he could possibly jump to. But right now, what I'm asking for is the 13,500 to not come from his salary and to come from our general account.
Thank you. I think this needs to happen. So,
Okay, so I'll make a motion to approve the allocation of $13,500 from the general funds to go towards the Mass Stream funds for the planning consultant, RIP, to revise and update the municipal code.
I'll second. Roll call, please.
Trustee Carla.
Yes.
Trustee Harper.
Yep. Yes.
Trustee Baker.
Yes.
Trustee Bearhouse.
Yes.
Trustee George.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Marty.
Yes.
Yes. Anything else on that item?
Nope.
Awesome. All right, moving on to the consent agenda items. Is there anything that anyone had a question to or any corrections needed before we approve?
I was sent a correction by a local community member. And there's, it's in the minutes. Let me get to it. The very last one during the last public comment of the evening, Melody Skinner had actually said that the town, if I can get to it and find it. Come on. Here we go. Said we were working in the right direction on affordable housing and that we were a revolving door community. She wanted to make sure that that was emphasized correctly, as that was missing in her context and in that public comment.
Awesome. So any other questions to the consent agenda, or do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda as revised? Kelly?
I just wanted to add that there was 4 checks added to this check run afterwards. They are for the summer sounds, which is happening on August 20th. They were turned into me like we needed to get them done.
Is there anything notable about the size of those checks relative to past checks?
No, they're just a couple $100.
We had a pretty sizable check for Eggleston Cosnick, 13,384. I wondered about what was going on there.
Those are 2 invoices for the last 2 months that they were with us. So those are those 2 invoices.
Okay, got it. Thanks. I wanted to say congratulations, Gloria. It looks like you closed on your house.
I did.
Oh, wait, that's later. Sorry.
Oh, yeah, later.
Okay. So then that's what it was. I was just looking at the checks to make sure that they were mostly matching. So the David Singer, Lisa Branner, James Mirabella, and Alan Boradley are the checks. Yeah, are the checks that were not included, and the amounts are $450, $300, and $1,000, just for the public record.
Someone like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda as revised?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as revised.
Do we have a second? Second. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Trustee Guerrero.
Yes.
Trustee Harper.
Yep. Yes.
Trustee Baker.
Yes.
Trustee Bearhouse.
Yes.
Trustee George.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Marty.
Yes.
Mayor Herman.
Yes. All right. Now I think congratulations are in order under our staff report section.
I'm smiling really big under here. waited a long time to call myself a Silverton resident, so I'm very excited. And I do want to start off my staff report with a big thank you to Jimmy Loki for submitting the grant to DOLA for the grooming at Mullis, requesting $57,071 on behalf of the Silverton Snowmobile Club that operates 2 snowcats, groom 104 miles of snowmobile and skiing and snowshoe trails on US Forest Service, BLM, and San Juan County land. The funding will be used for fuel, insurance services, and maintenance on snowcats. So awesome job, Mr. Loki. And we did help support that grant by signing it. I also want to update you all on San Miguel Power Association. They did not get their CDOT permit approved for the fire mitigation work and subsequent road closures on August 9th through the 13th. So the road was open today. There will be no closures related to San Miguel Power Association in August at all.
Hooray.
So at this time and going forward, pending CDOT permit approval, they will continue with the already scheduled September road closures dates of the 13th through the 16th and the 20th through the 24th. And then additional road closure dates for later in September and October will be proposed and discussed amongst the stakeholder group. That's a quick update on that. And then we are down 2 staff members in City Hall, and we'll be interviewing for the deputy clerk's position tomorrow. So we're really excited about that. And then we're also hiring the public works in the public works department, as well as hiring for a temporary communications and events manager. I'd like to recognize Todd Bove for taking on additional responsibilities lately and keeping events going. It's not sustainable, but he's taken on more than we could write in a job description probably, as well as Kelly for continuing all this time without a deputy clerk. We do need more people in the office, or we need to discuss cutting services because we are strapped thin right now. And I just want to say my staff is incredible at trying to keep up with everything.
And we would all agree that we have an amazing staff. I think we say that as often as we can.
Thank you. Those are my updates.
Thank you. Any trustee questions or comments or discussion related to the staff reports?
Really just want to thank Public Works for being on top of it, having our Boulder water intake clogged with that landslide. So didn't even notice that that had happened. Great services throughout town. So excellent job again to staff, keeping the water going to our town.
Thank you, Jess. All right, great work all around. Moving on to committee reports. I'm uncertain as to whether or not we've had any committee meetings since our last meeting.
Nope. We canceled the library board meeting and we're rescheduling it. Part of that was just a lot of people had a lot of conflicts. So I don't know, have you heard? I haven't heard of it. So it'll probably be on a normal Thursday then at 3, which is the 3rd Thursday at 3. So we would have had one, but we didn't.
I know a lot of meetings are on hold until we have the workshop or work session about that, but was there a committee meeting scheduled that's coming up soon?
Not at this time.
Okay. Okay. Trustee reports. Anything new and exciting in trustee land?
I'll throw one out there. I just want to do it. An address an email we got from a citizen asking the town to address climate change in a manner. Something for us to do tonight, but I know it's close to a lot of things we've brought up in the past. I know Jess has talked about town water rights and we've talked about other sustainability projects. But I think that would be, important for us to help create policies and set up town for when we're all dead and the town of Silverton still exists in hopefully a prosperous and sustainable way.
I forwarded that email to Kelly to read at the end of the meeting.
Perfect.
Maybe we can add composting in with that one.
Wouldn't we have to change the municipal code to have the composting? I believe that was what the issue was before when we discussed it with the people with the dump, because we have something that says it's not allowed. Bill McDougal brought it up. So that's not hard. But if we want to put it on there together, then if Mr. McDougal can tell you where it is and what it is and what needs to be changed so we can start composting, I think it's a great idea.
My trustee update is I'm obviously not there. I apologize for missing these last two meetings in person, but it's been really convenient and helpful to attend on Zoom. And it's an informative experience just to see how other people experience our meetings attending in this way. And my one question is just when I attend on Zoom, I can see who's attending in person and on the Zoom call. But when we're in person, we don't know who's on Zoom. So I wondered if there is a way for us to just share the information of who's attending on Zoom, as well as showing the audience the way it is, because I can see that, but it doesn't work that way when you're in person.
I think a related question that I know has come up from community members is, can the list of attendees be a public list? And it seemed, at least early on, that the only way to make the attendee list public was to have everybody as a panelist, which when we first were getting set up on Zoom, I think the town decided that that was unwieldy, but I'd be curious to know the town's thoughts at this point, now that we've been doing this for such a long time. There's ways to make it as similar to an in-person meeting as possible. Because if everybody's here, you just look around and see who's there. And in this case, people can watch YouTube or Zoom, but they, similar to what Sally just said, can't see who else is participating.
Okay. I would have to look into that.
For sure.
I know one thing is the cost of Zoom as to how many people we can have on as panelists. The more we have, the more it's gonna cost us. What I remember Lisa Briner had said before.
So the question is that we here want to see who's participating online.
That was Sally's question, and then I added on to it to see if
You can click on participants right there and it'll come up on the side there. And then we here can see who's.
Sure.
Yeah, but it's other people. It's when you are an attendee and you're not a panelist, you can't see it. So you don't know who else is there. That was brought up many, many, many times throughout the previous winter.
Yeah, that was my addendum to Sally's question.
I might reach out to some communities and see what they do.
Cool.
To make that happen.
Who does?
I would reach out to some communities and
Cool.
see what they do.
Anything else from that would fit within trustee reports? All right. Moving on to continued business. First up, affordable housing. And I believe we have an update on San Juan Development's housing discussion held on the 5th.
So I would really like to thank Doug Kramer, Economic Development, for organizing the housing discussion that we had on the 5th of August. We had representation from USDA, CHAPA, Homes Fund, Housing Solutions, Department of Housing, Citizens Bank, and current Anvil contractors, and route policy, and as well as the city and the county. And so it started off with an understanding of the programs that every organization has to offer and what they would have to offer Silverton. And then we discussed at length multi-unit development in Anvil and partnership with the county, and basically moving forward, working on technical assistance with CHAPA that would provide us money to hire someone who would create a blueprint and kind of lay out how many units and what that would look like. And then we would take that and use it in our application to the Department of Housing, which would then hopefully give us the funds to start a project that could possibly be ready in spring of 2022. So the goal is trying to get it moving as fast as possible, and that's why we had all the players in the room. Another thing that came out of that was continued work on policies that will support affordable housing, including the creation of a housing authority. And there was also discussion on tiny home development. So that's kind of the recap of what we did.
A quick question about creating the units, multi, doesn't matter. Would some of them be for sale, or would they only all be for rent? What would be the proportions? Was that discussed?
That would be in this blueprint that we would ask for from CHAPA as far as like how we would manage that.
Okay.
Because they would have a better idea moving forward on that one. So, but we did discuss both rental and for sale, and kind of the options on how we could. And it seemed like from the attendees or from the attendance that there was a push towards more rentals. And even if like businesses owned a portion of it, or a house, or a apartment, and then they rent it out. So there was a lot of discussion on kind of creative ways that we could have those rentals.
Okay. Well, just from perspective of other people that live in the community, the new fourplex that's going in, it's been inquired about how much each unit would be for that, and it's not affordable for that at all. So that priced, everybody who's been asking about that project out. And then with the Miners Flats project that we discussed at the last meeting, that the planning department had in front of them, if they can get some good, blueprints and whatever else Jess was saying that they needed, that's another really big potential win for the community as well. So you've got a lot of people that have the means to purchase something that's lower cost, I guess. That's the people that have approached me, that I'm really interested in buying something if these units come up, but I can't spend over, like 250,000 if it's like, a condo basically. So that's something to put into perspective too, because there are people with means that want them. They would rather not have to pay the rent. So Beth, are you there?
Hi, yeah, can you hear me all?
Yes.
Okay, great. And I just want to kind of react to that discussion, is that we have to remember that the Anvil development is under kind of regulations from their DOLA grant on occupancy and units available for those for AMI restrictions. So any development that would be developed in Anvil would be for kind of these 120% or lower average medium income with different requirements. So yeah, we're definitely looking at development within those different income brackets in order to help support our workforce.
Just as a quick follow-up to that, does that mean that all Anvil development projects have to be rentals, or can they be for sale within that AMI threshold?
They don't all have to be rentals. No, that's correct.
And is that because the DOLA funds paid for the environmental mitigation and infrastructure, even though it wouldn't necessarily be DOLA funds paying for new construction?
Is your question why they don't all need to be rentals or why they need to be AMI?
Well, no, I just didn't realize, I knew that the Anvil Apartments had that restriction on them. But for example, the proposal that we got from Bill McDougall a few meetings ago suggesting that we build some multifamily projects over on those lots. It wasn't clear to me that those were already encumbered with certain restrictions. It seemed like the town had the capacity to kind of set whatever the best possible restrictions would be to ensure that they meet current needs of the community. But it sounds like we have to live within, or we possibly have to live within the same restrictions that already apply to the Anvil Apartments. And I was just wanting to confirm that. And I'm going to keep run-on sentencing.
Yeah, so let me answer that question. So as per the DOLA restrictions for the build out at Anvil, 60% of the units have to be income restricted to 125% AMI. Of that 60%, 1/3 of the units have to be restricted to 80% or below AMI.
Right, which I understand applies to the apartments. My question is, how is it that grant money also restricts undeveloped land? Is it because money was spent on environmental mitigation and infrastructure development?
I believe so, but let me get back to you on those specific requirements and I can definitely get a better answer to you.
Great, thank you, because that very much changes kind of our scope of possibilities if we're already subject to specific limitations based on what comes with, what encumbrances the land comes with, as opposed to just how we fund the rest of it.
Thank you, Beth.
Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you. Anything else on housing discussion? No? Okay. We have OHBs. Is that here related to the ballot election, or is there anything else?
No, just related to the ballot elections at this point.
Copy that. Does anybody have a comment on OHBs? Are we good? Cool. All right.
Can I interject quick before public comment?
If it's on topic.
What?
If it's on topic.
It is not on topic.
What say this board?
What topic is it?
On our meeting protocols, I was just gonna ask you guys if you wouldn't mind putting your phones away. It's just really distracting when you're texting. It's
To you?
no, just
To whom?
I don't know who you're texting.
Are you questioning the fact that you believe I'm texting somebody?
No, I've seen you guys texting all meetings. It's
This
very
is my
distracting.
son. And my son has had some issues with the trash compactor, and I'm supposed to be leaving out of town tomorrow morning, and he's supposed to be helping with the dogs. So now we're trying to re-coordinate what's happening, because he has to go to bed. Because he's got to get up early in the AM, so that's what I'm
Appreciate
texting
that. It
about.
doesn't make it any less distracting.
So, but distracting for whom? It's not distracting for me. It's something I have to take care of.
In our meeting protocols.
Thank you, Jordan. All right, at this time, we'll move on to public comment. We'll start out with in-person comments.
No, thanks.
All right, we do not have any in-person comments. We'll look to our Zoom attendees. If you're participating on Zoom,
please click the raise hand button. And you will be able to comment. Seeing none, we will now close public comment and,
One more.
You wanted me to read the letter from the,
right.
Miss Margot Early, yes.
Yes, please go ahead.
And that's what I was, and I'm holding up my cell phone so everyone can see. This is what I was forwarding while I was on my cell phone tonight. Thank you, Trustee Burma, to our town clerk, Kelly Price. Thank you.
I do think the animosity that I'm feeling from the two of you from Jordan's comment is necessary.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, Shane. I am trying to point out for the record that
which is perfect.
Jordan pointed something out, and I am trying to follow up for the record so that everyone knows at home what I was doing. I'm simply answering his question.
In a very defensive and aggressive way. I just think that this could be handled in a more conversational.
I think your cell phone's sitting right there. Your cell phone, we can say this about everybody.
Well, we also have computers in front of us.
Yes,
so
I mean, this is.
We're all based
come on
in
now.
technology now.
I'm not.
And I think that comment was out of line because it wasn't on topic, but I totally understand. And, Jordan was able to say it. That's great. I was able to reply to you. Perfect.
I'm not weighing in on the substance, just on the tone of the back and forth.
Well,
just want to make sure that we're sitting in front of a civility sign, politeness, courtesy.
Did I raise my hand? Did I hurt anyone's feelings?
The tone of both reactions was a bit aggressive.
For you?
In my opinion.
Well, in your opinion, and I thank you for that.
But thank you. And so if we could please have the reading of Margot's email, that would be great.
this came from Margot Early. It says, hi trustees, in light of the UN's report on the urgent need to halt climate change, I'm requesting that the trustees put Silverton's response to climate change on their next agenda. We have an opportunity and an obligation to respond as a community to this emergency, which should inform all town decisions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Margot.
And with that, we now close public comment. The time is 8:55 p.m. Turn this